right, so in this video, we are talking about why most people think that decisions are made with logic, but they are not. They're made with emotions. Buyers and your prospects and people in general make their decisions based on emotions, and then they justify that decision based on logic. Okay? It is extremely simple, and I'm going to tell you why it is so simple, but it's something that you need to understand because most of you guys are going in with logical questions first, and then they want to, and then you want to try and sell them something, or you want to get them on a meeting. But if you go with logical questions first, people is not going to respond very well to that because of a few reasons that I'm going to go into soon. Um, People don't buy the a Lamborghini because it has some nice seats or it has a awesome coffee cup holder or whatever it is. They buy it because of status, and status is an emotional trigger. People want to get be acknowledged, whatever, and that's why they buy the Lamborghini, not because of how fast they can actually drive or the leather seats or the coffee cup holder, which is nice and which is what people kind of use to justify their decisions. Like, oh, awesome, I can now use this coffee cup holder. Or like if someone's buying a Tesla, they will be like, oh, nice, now I can, now it's self-driving, so I can kind of get some work in or while driving, whatever it is. They justify their emotional decisions based or yeah, the emotional decisions based on logic, right? So if you don't spark emotions first when you're sending cold emails, it's very simple. They are just not gonna listen, or they won't be able to listen. They will just ignore it, and they will probably delete your email. So before you've sparked their emotions, they will not be interested in what you have to say after that. Okay. Something that really just dialed this home for me was when I was reading Pitch Anything, and I highly, highly recommend every single one of you to go ahead and get Oren Klaff's book about or called Pitch Anything. But Oren Klaff speaks about how the brain works in Pitch Anything because Oren Klaff is the type of person, or his job is to get hired by startups that need investors on board. And Oren Klaff is the dude that goes out to these investors, pitches the startup to the investors so they can get funded and they can use their money to build whatever software they have or startup they have. Um, so Oren Klaff explains that the brain is basically separated in three parts. So you got the croc brain or the crocodile brain, you got the midbrain, and you got the neocortex. The croc brain is like the very primal part of the brain. It is what basically all animals have. It's the oldest part of our brain, and it's what is made to make us survive in the world. So when something is coming at us, we use the croc brain to defend ourselves, right? Like let's say an animal in back in the days were coming to attack us, we would use the croc brain to kind of figure out, okay, this is dangerous, I need to fight out this battle. Whereas the neocortex is the newer developed part of our brain that is actually able to think rational thoughts and be able to digest complex solutions or complex ideas, right? Um, so the neocortex part of our brain is the logical, it's what makes us human. The croc brain, on the other hand, is the most primitive part of the human brain, often compared to the brain of the crocodile. This part of the brain is responsible for basic functions like survival instincts, like as I told before, immediate reactions, and it's not capable of complex thoughts, and is primarily focused on whether something is a threat, a reward, or irrelevant. Okay, so the concept of the brain or the croc brain is used to explain why complex and nuanced information often fails to engage potential clients or investors. Okay. The croc brain is not able to digest like nuanced information, so logical information, right? And Oren Klaff suggests that when you first present an idea to someone, their primitive croc brain is evaluating it on a very basic level. So so Oren Klaff says when he's pitching something, but in our case, it's when we are cold emailing someone or we are cold calling someone. The first touch point they will use the croc brain. Your prospects will use the croc brain to figure out whether the idea is dangerous, pleasurable, or unimportant. That is the croc brain thinking. So something that you have to understand is that the first interaction you have with someone, they will just use their croc brain to digest the information. And then the croc brain will figure out if it should send that information over to the neocortex part of the brain. Okay? I might not be explaining how the brain works in the best way possible. Maybe there's more nuances to it, but this is the simple terms that Oren Klaff explains it, and I think it makes somewhat sense. I don't know if the croc brain is sending information to the neocortex, but whether or not how it works in the brain, this is how the brain is kind of made up. You got the croc brain, you got the neocortex. The neocortex is the logical thing. The croc brain is there to figure out if you have to fight or flight, right? Are you hungry? Okay, go out, hunt, kill something. Where the neocortex is the more developed, that can actually solve logical things. So, what does that mean? It means that when we present our idea first, let's say in a cold email, we need to kind of make it so that we spark some kind of emotions, because if it's unimportant, they will not care. If it's not pleasurable, they will not care. If it's dangerous, if it's not dangerous, it will not care. So it has to be either of these. Otherwise, the message is just going to get deleted and they're not going to want to read anything else. So to continue down with the Klaff example here, Oren Klaff says that to make a successful pitch, he advises to start with simple, attention-grabbing elements that speaks directly to the primitive part of the brain, so sparking emotions. Only after capturing the audience's attention and passing the initial croc brain filter. So think about it as a filter. The croc brain is going through the day, and most of the time, like 99% of the time, is the croc brain that is active in your brain. You're not constantly thinking about like math solutions when you're walking around, unless you are a bit cuckoo. So you are just walking around with the croc brain online, right? And the croc brain is just watching the world from the croc brain's point of view and figuring out, is this dangerous, is this pleasurable, or is this unimportant, right? So you need to, and the croc brain is just filtering out all this information. Is there a car coming at me? Is there someone with a knife coming at me? Okay, no, so it's not dangerous, so I can keep on walking, right? So every single time something happens, the croc brain is just kind of filtering out things. So we need to pass that initial croc brain filter, and then move on to the more complex stuff after we've passed it, but not before we've passed it. And most people, when they send cold emails and cold calls, they are not passing that filter first. They are just going straight into the complex or detailed aspects of the pitch, right? Does this make sense? You are going directly to the complex and detailed aspects of the cold email or the cold call or the Facebook ad before you have filtered out and actually passed the croc brain filter. Okay, so this strategy is designed to align with the way our brains process new information, thereby increasing the effectiveness of the communication. Okay, just like you don't care what exactly I tell you to do when you bought this course, right? You don't really care how or what you're going to do or what I tell you to do, as long as it works, right? As long as you will be able to book more meetings, sign more clients, and make more money. That's the reason why you bought. Not because I have the best videos on cold email in the world, or X many strategies on whatever topic, or how many percentages X better my strategy is compared to the other guys', right? So what most people do when writing that cold email, they say something like, hey James, we are a worldwide cutting edge software company that works with some of the top brands across the globe. We've received numerous awards for our product. Here are some of the things our software do. Help keep track of all your leads, world-class analytics, easy reporting tools, 94% increased in productivity. Would you like to see a demo? So there's no emotional triggers here. They're just spouting facts They're spouting like social proof, whatever, cutting edge software. What is that even? Um, there's no emotional triggers here, right? They are just pouring out like random facts and just going into analytical shit. And some people, what they also do, I haven't written a sentence for that here, but what they sometimes people will do in their cold email is that they will try and explain what their product does in like complex words, like you are talking to like a PhD or someone that actually knows so much about your product or your service. Where most people they have no idea what you do. It's only because you are so invested in that product that you know so much more, but you really have to dumb it down like by a lot, because if it's just a little bit complex, the crop brain is not going to be able to filter it out, or it's not going to be able to understand it. So you need to get their attention and get it past the crop brain with extreme simple information, and then go into the logical things. Okay. So what is a better way to start a cold email? So let's try and say, hi James, as the head of sales of company, I'm sure you're always looking for a way to make your sales reps more effective. This might be one of the main points that a head of sales is looking to do at a certain company, right? And you mentioned this. What is that for an emotional trigger? That is, I guess you would call that some type of empathy, right? Because you know what they're going through. They're always looking for ways to make your sales reps more effective, right? Then you say, we help marketing agencies like company name eliminate the time your sales rep spends on sourcing leads. Okay, so that should already trigger some type of emotion, because they're spending so much time sourcing leads, and then they could save so much more time by having another way to do it. We recently helped compare the name. That also sparks some kind of emotion, because if a competitor is doing it, you also want to do it, and you're always trying to win over your competition. And if they are using this thing and they just increased their sales by 21%, you might also want to use it, because each sales rep had more time to sell rather than wasting time, I guess, with sourcing leads, right? So that has already sparked a lot of emotions. Would you be interested in a demo? And with this, you can even put another sentence like that is more complex after you have sparked some emotions, because they are now emotionally invested in the cold email, whereas before they were not. So you can see how we use empathy in the start to showcase we care about the prospect's goals and achievements, and then paint a picture of a problem they're currently facing that we can help them remove before going into the logical talk. Right? So, we want to paint a picture. Painting a picture or telling stories is one of the easiest way to trigger emotions and get people's attention. Um, I don't know why stories are just like the best way to get like someone to listen. I guess it's because stories has always been part of humans. Everyone has been telling stories since the dawn of human time. So you can use that. I wouldn't use it in your cold emails. I know some people like to do story selling in their cold emails, but I would definitely incorporate stories and story selling in your sales assets, your sales letters, on your website, and on sales calls. Um, Another thing is that we want to kind of paint a picture of a problem that they currently have, because most people, when they send their cold emails, they don't want to, or they don't kind of paint a picture of what the outcome actually looks like or what the problem looks like. They just like kind of explain broad in broad terms what their problems is, and the outcome they always say, we can increase your productivity by 84%. Okay, but what does an increase in 84% productivity even means, right? There's no way for the prospect to connect the dots there. You're not connecting the dots for them, and if you just say that the outcome is an 84% productivity, what is that, right? So you need to explain to them what an 84% productivity increase actually is for them, right? So that might be a cold caller that can now sit on the phone and cold call for 3 more hours every single day compared to before that when he was only being able to like before, because the cold caller before could only call a certain amount of hours because he was sourcing leads himself. But if your software sources the leads for him and just gives him the leads, right? He don't need to spend 3 hours a day sourcing leads. So on top of his normal shift of 3 hours of cold calling, he's now not spending the 3 hours sourcing leads, so he can call people 6 hours a day. So you can basically explain that in the cold email that your this competitor cold callers went from calling 3 hours a day to 6 hours a day and increasing their top of pipeline by over or doubling their top of funnel pipeline, right? So paint a picture for them. Like that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about emotions. Um, Instead of saying 21%, that is so complex. Like people don't want to think what 21% is. Like productivity, like of course you can mention it here because it's a little bit more, you've already engaged them in the emotional thing, so you have bypassed the whole thing about the crop brain. They already invested so they can process more complex stuff. But even though we've passed it, we don't want to make it too complicated. We don't want to. So even here, I don't like saying 21%. I would say double their sales, right? Instead of 21%. Especially when you're talking about things like productivity, right? Because productivity is like, what is productivity? I see so many people, they think that their outcome is 50% more productivity. In sales and revenue, it's a bit easier to just say 21% because it is just, you go from $100,000 a month to $121,000, right? It's a bit easier to kind of visualize instead of productivity because what is a 83% more productivity? It means that I'm doing things 83% faster, but what does that mean? Like how much more can I get accomplished with that? Um, but yeah, guys, I hope this makes sense. Just remember that it's the croc brain that is active most of the time when you're just doing things. It's the croc brain that is figuring out, is this dangerous? Is this not important? Can I mate with it? Whatever. And it is just filtering out different stuff. And if it is interesting, right? If it is interesting and it wants to learn more about it, and it has sparked some type of emotion, it will go send that to the new cortex so the new cortex can analyze it from a logical perspective. But if you just go to the logical perspective first or logical way of pitching, the croc brain is just not even going to be able to understand it at all. It's not going to like, it doesn't, it literally cannot see if this makes sense for that person, and it's just going to ignore it. It's not interesting. I'm ignoring it. I'm deleting the email, right? So you need to bypass the new cortex or bypass the croc brain so you can go up to the new cortex and you can actually start having a conversation with people, right? Same goes with cold calling. Like I see so many people when they cold call, the first thing they do is that they tell them, "My name is Gus. I'm with Scaling Operation. What we do is XXX, and we do this through our four-step scaling process that involves XXX." Right? So they have this huge value proposition that they just explain within the first 2 minutes, and the person is just like, the prospect that you call is literally just like, who is this fucking guy that just called me and is just explaining things that I don't understand. And the reason why he doesn't understand it is because you are talking to his croc brain. He's not, you haven't activated his neocortex, so he doesn't understand what you're saying right now, right? He's just like, okay, this dude is just boring as fuck. It's uninteresting. I'm not even gonna listen. I'm gonna wait for him to say his pitch, and then I'm just gonna write my email while this dude is just talking on the phone. And when he's done, I'm just gonna say I'm not interested and hang up. Right. Right. That was a little bit long for a rant, but I hope this makes sense. And this is one of the biggest reasons why most of your guys' cold emails fall flat, because you are just talking to the new cortex when you should be talking to the quad brain first. Okay. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next video.